to this session. I'm really hoping that this will give you the encouragement and the confidence to go ahead with your climate action planning, because it is not something that you have to do. This is not statutory. The climate action plan is something that's expected. So it's really great practice to make sure that you have one, because this is about us all doing our bit to combat climate change. And we know that any change in behaviour, any important ideas need to be introduced early for our children to fully understand them. So this is why everyone in every setting is encouraged to have a climate action plan. And this is about getting our children aware of sustainability, aware of the natural environment and how they can be responsible around issues to do with nature. What are the things they can do to feel like they have agency, to feel like they're doing something positive to ensure that the nature around them is safeguarded? And very importantly, when we're talking about climate change, we are talking about the environment becoming more polluted, more heat building up, and us producing more heat than disappears out of the Earth's atmosphere. So that's why it's getting hotter. It's trapped. When we had a better balance, the amount we were emitting was almost equivalent to the amount that we were absorbing. Now we're emitting more than we're absorbing. So it's a good idea to know about what we can do to absorb more carbon, to absorb more emissions, to absorb more heat. And for children to understand that, a really lovely way in is to teach our children about trees and how those trees create shade, they create a cooler environment, and they absorb pollution whilst also emitting the oxygen that we need to breathe. So all of this came about in the COP26. It was made very clear that putting climate change at the heart of education was going to be a big part of what the Department for Education was going to do. The Department for Education is still committed to this, which is why we are still expected to have a sustainability lead in every setting and a climate action plan. So this is about our children becoming the guardians of the world, understanding their part, the part they play in conserving and protecting the planet. We don't know what future jobs they'll go into. Jobs are going to be changing. There'll be many more jobs around sustainable farming, sustainable food production, sustainable packaging. My husband met a materials scientist the other day at dinner, and he was talking about how he's working on mycelium. Mycelium is fungus, so it's what mushrooms come from, and they are producing all sorts of incredible materials that are really durable, even in housing. And this man had just created some insulation that's made from mycelium. So in years to come, when that house is broken down, the mycelium is going to break down back into the soil. It's fully biodegradable. So stories like this are really great stories to latch onto and share with our children. If you want to see the strategy, this is the link to the strategy. that the DFE published in 2023. It's the one that said very specifically that there was the expectation for everyone to have a sustainability lead and a climate action plan. So when we're developing our curriculum in our settings, really good idea to weave in the idea of climate change and the idea of responsible citizenship and guardianship, and making sure that we are making changes to how we do things. Little changes make a big difference. The values and attitudes that we want to pass on to our children are about instilling early that we want to be able to look after what we have, that idea of consuming less, actually reducing how much we buy, and then thinking about how we can reuse what we have so it lasts longer. And only after we've exhausted those two possibilities do we then talk about recycling. So the emphasis is much more on the reduction of how much we buy, reducing the buying of things that can't be recycled or cannot be repurposed or cannot biodegrade. And then the last resort is recycling. Sometimes it's framed as the most important thing that we do. It's actually not great, but it's better than putting it into landfill. So the first site that I'm going to draw attention to is the National Education Nature Park. They've worked with the DFE to produce loads of resources to make it really easy for those of you who might not have ideas of what you could do to mitigate climate change or to get children to be a bit closer to nature and learn more about their natural surroundings. They've made loads of links to other organisations. So you can look up filtering by key stage or by subject or by the duration of the activity. You might want to find 5-minute activities and have a look on their site to see what they've got available. And they've done all of that work of making the connection with climate change and sustainability. So you know that if you go to the National Education Nature Park, you're going to find things that are really easy to implement and also appropriate for your climate action plan. They signpost you to other organisations such as the Woodland Trust. They've got loads of free materials. So all of this is free. You may have to sign up with your email address and create a password or a login, but everything I'm signposting you to is completely free. The Eden Project and the Learning Through Landscapes are both organisations that have been going on for a long time, and they've produced a lot of materials for the early years as well as the other key stages. And this site is specifically early years based. It's a wonderful hub for sustainability. A few of the early years stronger practice hubs came together to create this early years sustainable hub, which has the climate action plan on it, a template that you can just lift off and use if you like the look of it. There are case studies in case you want to delve a bit deeper into what you might do yourself, and loads of curriculum resources that you can just lift off. And they've made some really clear links to the Sustainable Development Goals that actually are really nice UNESCO goals that you can easily print off and have displayed and make clear links to which of the goals you are working on when you look at different types of activities and different aspects of your curriculum. This is a really interesting site. So if you are not completely new to this kind of work, you might be wanting to count your carbon footprint. A lot of carbon counting resources and platforms you have to pay for out there. This is one that is free. You can input the type of waste, how much waste you produce each day, the type of meals that you have, and you input all of your information and you can get a really good picture of how much carbon your setting is emitting. And then they'll give you ideas on how you can reduce that. And another really nice tool is the harvestometer. So if any of you are already producing some of your own salad, some of your own peas, some of your own beans, we're lucky enough to have chickens here, so we produce eggs. You can measure how much carbon you've saved by growing your own or by producing your own. So you simply weigh those products, you put them into the harvestometer, and the harvestometer calculates for you how much carbon you've saved. So that's a really nice tool, an easy way to share with parents and children how much carbon you're saving by producing your own. So this is what the action plan that they have on the Early Years Sustainable Hub looks like. You can simply use this one, or you can create your own. There is no statutory need to create this, and you don't have to present it in a particular way. You can just use your own A4 simple template. It could just be a table. You can create your own, or if this is useful as a guide, you can have a look at theirs and you can see examples of completed plans, because that might be useful. But don't let it be off-putting. If they've made really long plans, that doesn't mean yours needs to be. They've divided theirs into 3 simple areas: environmental, social, and economic. You might want to divide it in a different way. They felt this was very early years friendly. It's absolutely fine to organise it differently if that works better for your setting. These are packs and websites that I've found incredibly useful. I really like this Essex County Council's Early Years Advice Pack that is specific to your climate change action plan. The RHS resources are amazing. If you want to set up your own garden, or if you want to enhance your own little garden space, or your little courtyard, or your little balcony, these are really, really great resources to tap into. If you sign up to the RHS, they'll send you a starter pack, and that usually has seeds, planners for what you can do over the year, and also an opportunity to go through different stages of accreditation, and it's all completely free. The online resources from Lambeth around climate change are called Lambeth Future Fit, and that's also well worth a look at. If you are in a different borough, your borough may have some incredible resources out there, because everyone's been asked to support every organisation, every educational setting to be able to easily implement the climate action plan. So Southwark have produced a very easy template that you can adopt. You don't have to be in Southwark. If you like the look of their template, you can take theirs. The idea is that you're thinking about an action, thinking about what you want the children to learn and how you're going to measure that they've learned that. very simple. But what it does state you need to do, the DFE is saying one of these needs to be included in your action plan. So one of these 4 key areas. You could have all 4 of them, or you could choose to just start with one and then work your way to building over the years to include others. So decarbonisation is the first one. Adaptation and resilience is the second. Biodiversity, which I'd say is one of the ones that our early years settings tend to already be doing quite a lot around. We already talk to the children about the different bugs that we come across, the different types of plants that are nice to have in our local environment. So that's one that I would signpost people to if they're very new to creating a climate action plan. Looking at the biodiversity strand is a really easy way in. Creating diversity with your plants and with the types of bugs that you're introducing to your natural areas. Climate education and green careers is another one. And I'd say that on CBeebies, there are some really interesting videos that support our climate education. And also they will talk about certain careers that are green careers that maybe traditionally were not talked as much about. So think about the types of careers that we talk about to the children when we talk about people who help us. Maybe we can include some of the people who help us around climate change, the people who produce renewable sources of energy, the climate scientists who are talking about different types of materials that biodegrade, the engineers who are out there who are designing things that are more sustainable, that are going to break down more easily and be biodegradable in many years to come. Or the people who look after our parks, or the people who produce our food. There's going to be a lot of talk around producing food in a more sustainable way. So building our connection with nature is something that as early years practitioners we tend to gravitate towards quite naturally. The 50 things to do before you're 5 is really nice to share with parents and carers to carry on that journey of connection with nature in their holiday time or at their weekends. I've put links here to the Tree Council, who have amazing resources, and the Orchard Project, if you particularly want to work around planting some of your own trees, if you have an area that could have more trees in it. We have a very small site and we're up to our limit of the amount of trees that we can plant, but we're all on different settings and different sites. And I've put Natural Thinkers here as well, that was offered through Lambeth, but they have resources that are applicable or you can access, but you can also pay to be part of a training project called Natural Thinkers. That's the only thing that I put there that you could pay for as well. But if we look at some of the books you might be using to support some of this work around building your connection with nature, noticing what's around you, noticing the changes that happen over time. These are some of the texts that we've used that support our youngest children. I know that a lot of you have asked for texts that are appropriate for some of our youngest learners. They don't have too many words in them, and the concepts are really simple, easy to grasp. and they're visually quite beautiful as well. The tree book up in the corner here has a whole series of texts around nature that I would highly recommend. They're all in rhyme, so a really nice way into early tuning into language as well. These texts are all around bugs and how important bugs are in creating soil for us, or in the case of bees, pollinating our fruit trees. So without them, we'd be in real trouble. We wouldn't have our fruit to eat. And I also slipped in a book that is really interesting for adults, subject knowledge. It's building up our own subject knowledge around bugs is really helpful in answering all of those very curious questions that come up when we are discovering bugs with children. And our next step is often explaining to the children the very important roles that bugs have in supporting biodiversity, in creating really good quality soil for us to plant in. These are more texts that are really useful for our youngest learners. And the idea of waste can be a really helpful project to have, or topic to have running through your curriculum. This isn't about us having one-off projects, but rather having ideas that run through what we do daily, so that our children know where they do the recycling in our space, where they put things that are going to be reused, where the junk modelling goes, where we keep those collections of natural objects that we've collected on our walks, and how we make really careful use of our boxes, how we make them last as long as we possibly can, because they're so fun to use as houses or dens. And then once the den falls apart, can we break that box up and open it out and paint on it and have it in our outdoor areas? And that language of preservation and making things last is really important when we're talking about the toys that we have, the artifacts that we have in our spaces, the small world stuff that we have that's made of plastic or rubber, and how it gets brittle over time. So if we handle it carefully, we can make it last longer. So those links to curriculum, I think, definitely your way into making this an easy task. Making your own soil is something that not everybody will have been exposed to or will have found to be easy. It's actually quite an easy task. I've got a little bucket on my balcony that has loads of old bits of bush which I've cut up, leaves, compost from the kitchen, and I've added worms to this bucket. I just make sure that it has good drainage and that it doesn't get too dry. You can also rip up bits of cardboard and add those to your compost. And I'm having a bit of success even on just a small balcony and using a simple bucket. You can get really nice compost bins from the council. And if you have a little caddy, that's a really nice way to have in your setting, a place where you put your own old food scraps, your old bits of fruit, your fruit peelings. But little word of caution, if you're putting cooked things or meat into your compost, you need to make sure you have a hot bin that is sealed. Otherwise, you're going to attract rats, and we don't want that. So if you're wanting to compost your cooked waste, it needs to go in a sealed hot bin that creates your compost a bit more quickly. And if you have issues and the barrier of not being very close to an outdoor area, think about bringing the outdoors in. Think about foraging, but when you forage, only take about 30% of the wild things that are growing, because we need to leave stuff for the bugs and the birds and the foxes that are using those spaces. And that idea that we're sharing all of our natural spaces with other creatures. And here's a lovely little setup that I thought was nice to share. I'm a real fan of this series of books. Lulu does all sorts of things. You saw her with the bees earlier, and here this is her Love Flowers book. And here a practitioner has put some really nice little napkins and stuck them onto blocks that the children can then build with. And she's just used PVA to do that, and collected a few little bits of petals and leaves, and they've been used for transient art or for little patterns that have been made on a block. And that idea of bringing your collections of what you found outside in is a really nice celebration of what nature provides us with. And when you are bringing the outside in, and when you are setting up particular types of activity, make sure that you are progressive in your approach. So you give plenty of time to that exploratory stage. So the children have time to smell and feel and maybe fill pots and empty pots with compost before they're expected to fill the compost, fill the pot with the compost, make the hole, put the seed in, cover it over, water it. If they haven't been through the process of experimenting with filling and emptying and smelling the compost, you may be disappointed that they end up emptying all of their pots. So think about your progressive approach of when you implement which stage. Make sure the experimentation and the discovery comes first before the following of the instructions. You might use these bugs that are so special to us as a mark making inspiration. Really easy to be able to make a worm. It's quite a lovely place to start. It's very achievable. Once you can make that worm in an enclosed way, you can do the lines along it. You can see that worm close up and see that it's got all these different sections. And then you can progress to having an enclosed beetle with the 6 little legs coming off it. And then you can talk about the arachnids, the spiders, and how they have the 8 legs, and you might then go on to making your spider webs. But all of those are really nice ways into mark making for our children who maybe are less confident with their marks, or maybe not attracted to writing particular words or doing representations of people, but the bugs might be a really nice way in for them. So yes, we are very reliant on food. We need food every day, so that's a very natural way to get our children to really engage with the idea of where our food comes from and how we produce our food. And at some point, you may be interested in talking about organic farming and how that doesn't use any chemical products that might be harmful. And there's a lovely pack here from Grow Your Own Potatoes that you can apply for, and they send you some free seed potatoes with loads of resources to support your learning around potato production, and you can produce your very own organic potatoes on site. And you can do simple things like making elderflower cordial. It's a bit too late for that now, but the lime flowers are on the trees at the moment, and you can make a lovely tea from lime flowers. So that's something you can do at the moment. And these are all links to some of the things that I've mentioned in this webinar. And here are also some really useful links. Two of these are resources that we've created and produced and put onto the website that you can take, you can print off. They're really helpful in your journey around nature learning. And there are lots of seasonal ideas in the language development in the garden resource. And I've made links to loads of different texts over the year and made it very seasonally appropriate. So you could use that to help you with your designing of your own curriculum and your weaving through of sustainability. And Rosa's Big Sunflower is a lovely resource that was made by our partner, our childminder partner, Annette, and she's used this lovely book, Rosa's Big Sunflower Experiment, to design a whole unit of a sort of topic around teaching all of the different areas through this lovely book.